supposed to start at 10:15, so we're just a couple minutes off. And it's still morning, so good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to MAX 2016. Probably tired of hearing us guys get up here and say that to you, but thank you for coming. This presentation is the first time that we're having RC and Dennis do a class together at MAX. And I have actually this is the longest speech that I have to give of the training event, so. It's not that long, it's just more than all the others. So I will just read it to you.
It's RC's fault.
Mary. Anyway.
Watch it, I will turn on my microphone.
R.C. Shermer is president of Glen Ray Radiators in Wausau, Wisconsin. He began working full-time in the family-owned business in 1977. He was immediately sent to the GM Training Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and to the local technical college for automotive air conditioning. Besides his shop duties, he also serves as an adjunct instructor at the same technical college. RC is an ASE certified in heating and air conditioning, also EVT certified in ambulance heating and air conditioning. He works in the shop and enjoys talking broken air conditioners and who wrote this? Enjoys taking broken air conditioners
before I was more literate.
And repairing them. RC also volunteers locally with the JCs, helping with community projects. MAX membership gives RC the access to knowledge and wisdom not available to normal channels. With his knowledge, he appeared at several Wisconsin State Senate hearings, speaking in favor of the small can ban currently in force in Wisconsin.
Holy crap, did they give you an old bio?
That's a little bit outdated, I think.
Where'd you get that?
I don't write it. I just read it.
So, you get back to the office, delete that file.
And also, RC, you were on the board for 2 years, your first term.
Right.
Just ended
last year.
Just ended last year, right. So. Now, for Dennis Husband, is currently a technical administrator for 1-800-RADIATOR and AC, answering tech questions and conducting AC clinics for 1-800-RADIATOR franchises and customers. If any of you guys have a 1-800-RADIATOR in your area, or if you have an opportunity to see Dennis or Richard teach a clinic, I highly suggest it. I saw my first one last year, and it's a lot of information and very useful for shop technicians. He's conducted over 2,000 AC clinics in North America and Canada for multiple manufacturers and distributors. Dennis has over 30 years of field experience and has written technical publications for VG Products and ProLines Ready Air. He has extensive research on refrigerants and oils. Dennis is an ASE certified technician. He started his automotive career in the mid-1970s, working in auto parts for various car dealerships and independent auto repair shops. Dennis served on the Interior Climate Control Standards Committee in 1990 for the writing of the Clean Air Act, Section 609, and has consulted for various companies. That was different. Such as Acme Radiator, General Motors, and BG Products. So for a little bit about me, my name is Steve Shaber, and I'm the manager of service training for MAX. I'm also the technical editor of our publications. So like Action Magazine and the MSR, the MAX WordPress blog. So if I hope that what you get from us, that you enjoy reading it, and if you, here's my selfish little plug, if you have any ideas or comments or questions or anything you'd like to see me write about, any topics that you'd like to have shared with other MAX members, please send them to me, because I'm always looking for more ideas and for other information that I can share with our membership. Thank you very much, guys, for coming. Dennis and RC.
Steve, you got a card?
Yes.
And away we go.
Okay. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming out. We appreciate your attendance on behalf of MAX. RC?
What we like, I like this stuff. Don't monkey with these for one reason. These guys that have these vehicles, They don't care how long it sits in your shop, as long as it's done right, and they ain't afraid to write the big check. They're simpler to work on, but these guys, $3,000, $4,000 check to fix their hair, they don't care. They want it to work. Good money in it, good money.
As far as the vehicle up here, something to give you guys a little starting on the topics. Z28 Chevrolet Camaros 67 through 69 weren't available with air conditioning. So it's a non-air conditioned car. So if you're going to air condition one of these cars and it has the old Trans Am 302 DC drivetrain, it's going to be a high-performance system like a vintage air or a system you're going to put on if it's not original equipment. Hard to find those cars. Very few of them left. Now let's back up. As far as the systems, the most important thing we've got to do for our customers is to make their systems cool efficiently. And on the older models, it can be challenging. Question for everybody in the room: how many techs, how many of you guys still have access to and use R12? Pretty good show of hands. The most important thing I can tell you about retrofitting is don't do it. If it's an older R12 system, it's designed for R12. It's going to cool efficiently with R12. Your customer is going to be happy, and the component lifespan is going to be much better than it would be with a retrofit to 134A or an alternate refrigerator. RC?
Simple. Basic, which, all right, which one we got? Oh, Ford.
That's the AMC setup.
Yeah. AMC, yeah, the AMC setup, there you go. Your basic, I'm sure you guys are all very much well aware of what these systems all look like. I gotta do some more sheets to these guys.
Well, I didn't thank you. Thanks for coming out.
All right. Basically, your dryer, expansion valve, thermostatic switch, yada, 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 yada. You'll find that on all your American Motors products. We just got a bunch of that stuff in from a restoration shop, 60 feet Hebrew to do.
Ford Motor Company, AMC, garbage trucks. Basic. The older systems you'll encounter. One of RC's favorites. Chrysler EPR valve setup, EPR valve, 61 was the first year for the EPR valve. As far as the system's concerned, with R12, you're dealing with a suction pressure that ran 22 to 31 PSI. As far as the system, copper tube and fin evaporators, copper tube and fin condensers. So the suction pressure has to be maintained down below that 31 PSI area, or you're not going to get an exchange of heat that's acceptable for the customer. Now, these systems are stacked air reheat. The one thing to look at in RC, you probably keep these in stock in your shop, the Chrysler heater valves. How many of you guys have had a heater valve on an older stacked core reheat system that prevented you from getting any air temperature out of the dash because the heater core wouldn't be blocked completely off? You still sell them?
No, they're available. Well, it depends which model you're looking at. You're looking at the B-body with the double heater core, or you're looking at the standard, because some had heater valves, some didn't. But your B-bodies with the double heater core setup, they had the valve built inside the vehicle. It's a bitch to get at.
We only had double heater cores in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Texas. We didn't have heaters. Didn't need them. As far as the system components, the restoration people still have a lot of the product available. The components to restore the compressors, internal parts, EPR valves, the support spring, they're all still available in the aftermarket.
Mm-hmm. Reed valves aren't available anymore.
Reed valves aren't?
Nope, I got the last of them. I snagged the last of them from there. But on those sheets that are handed out, that's a parts list of all, let's say you're crazy enough. Let's say you just got a good pumper, needs to be regasketed. They're very simple, take them apart, clean them up, regasket them, oil them back up. Not a problem. We use the Master Tech numbers so you can get them from all your various suppliers. As long as you give them the Master Tech number, most places can get you the pieces you need. And they're not that hard to do.
What about the EPR valves? Are they still available?
And for
Here,
national
here
parks
and there.
How about in Denver? It's like, it's hard
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the restoration companies got hold of a lot of the new old stock and they're out there. They're getting a premium price for them, just like a GMPOA. There's an outfit in Texas that's in Everett called Old Air Products.
Old Air? Okay.
And Old Air has some.
And there has some of that stuff left over yet.
And as far as the EPR valve systems, if your customer, which we don't recommend, but if the customer chooses to go to a 134A refrigerant, the EPR valve's got to go away. RC's list of parts shows the thermostatic switch, and RC covered the procedure for that switch location, so we don't run the compressor excessive, because it's a temperamental system to tune for a thermostatic.
I've never had much luck retrofitting an RV2 to 134A. I mean,
Oh, it can be done, it works.
it works, but they don't work great.
Oh, yeah. If,
Well-
in fact, where did you put the thermostatic switch?
Already need to cycle it.
The thermostatic, where did I place it in the evaporator core?
Yeah, the thermostatic switch, unfortunately, you're gonna end up with a big ugly old thermostatic switch on the firewall.
Right?
But it goes to the bottom of the suction pipe, coming out of the firewall. You clamp it, the sensing bulb goes on the bottom of the pipe, wrap her up with insulation good, works.
If you pull the EPR valve out of it and
You get
bring
the
the
guy
suction
fluid.
pressure down in the low 20s,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get a decent exchange of heat. Just the one thing I've seen, and RC mentioned earlier, that RV2s, one, they don't like to cycle. It's a heavy compressor. And the other one is the superheat of the expansion valve keeps the evaporator pretty well flooded. And because of an expansion valve system, you'll see an oscillation in vent temps when it cycles, where the EPR valve will give you a pretty consistent temp.
But the couple of them that we have had to do in the shop, like Russ's CUDA and stuff, he's very happy with how it cools. But like you said, you'll feel it. You'll feel when the compressor's on, when it's off. But what's the alternative?
Now, if it's a heavy car, they won't notice it.
Understood.
They didn't have it.
Find the forward button here.
Next one on the list that's got out there still in numbers is that POA valve setup. The POA valves, again, on the parts list, there's an update kit for those people that might want to update the systems and run 134A. If you've got a POA valve, they don't go bad. They stick, they get dirty. But if you've got hold of the POA valve, you're not going to find replacements in numbers. They're very expensive for the ones that are still around. Keep the one you got, pull it apart, and clean it. When you disassemble a POA valve, the oil bleed Schrager valve from the evaporator oil line to the POA is a 9-pound Schrager valve. It is unique. Don't mix it up. If you put a standard Schrager valve in that oil port, you'll starve the compressor for oil and burn it up. You'll find all the oil in the bottom of the evaporator. It won't bleed back through the system.
Are they all color-coded red on the seal? I mean, how do you know? You know,
they're not-
by
no,
looking at one, right?
The Delco, I think they're still available from Delco, the oil bleed valve 15-1119.
I know they're still out there. Like I say, they might have been red when they were new, but all the ones I've seen were all black.
Really?
They're all filthy.
They were all exactly, the valves were all stopped up full of garbage, but
Mhm.
they clean up and you can move the POA plunger, and once the valve is unstuck and lubricated, they go right back to working just like normal. And if any of you guys might happen to have it, Napa and Murray Corporation used to offer a tool with a gauge that allowed you to adjust a GM POA valve or forward suction throttling valve. The adjustment's on the inlet side of the valve, coming from the evaporator into the valve, and it's a spring plate with a nut. For 134A, you might lower that pressure to 26 to 30. With the old R12 systems, it was always 28 to 32 on the suction side, and it was very, very consistent. They're good systems. Keep them R12. As far as the parts, the rest of the components, RC mentioned it. You got an old A6, gut packs are readily available. You can put it back together and keep the original case.
All the way back to 1961. They have not changed that compressor internally since they first built it.
How about old A5 stuff?
A5 stuff, you have to send them in.
Do you?
Yeah, there's a place here in Florida, which I can't mention because they normally don't spend any money with Max, but they monkey with A5s.
Still a few of them out there.
Yeah.
A5s were short-lived compressors anyway.
It's classic auto wear intention.
Yeah. I can't mention them, he can.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
Gotcha.
Ford STV, pretty much the same as a GM POA. A little bit different system. You will find in the mid-70s a combo valve Ford STV system. Parts are very far and few between. They had some problems with it. One design was a bullet that went into a cavity. The other was an external, later model design was an external suction throttling valve. Most of the ones you find on the older Fords that are similar to the GMs, you
Yeah,
can service them in the same manner.
Yeah, those are mostly the full-size cars. That combo valve style was mostly like the Granadas, stuff like that you won't really, if you're a collector that's gonna fix a Granada, you got issues.
Yeah, if someone comes in to restore a 76 Lincoln Versailles, you might recommend psychiatric help. As far as the VIR system, RC, you can cover this one in depth. You got all the answers for the problems with these systems when you service them.
The VAR, the expansion valves, see, over the years have changed one. What happens is usually the desiccant goes south, and the POA valve comes up. You can take it apart, clean it in mineral spirits, put it back together again, and it works just fine. Don't get those aftermarket capsules that are a Ford combo valve that have a collar on them and staked in place to use. They don't work right. They have never figured out that they got the pressure setting too high for a Ford. And they just don't work. You can take this apart, it's got the baffle on top, you take that out, the spring, you take the piston out, the spring out, you clean it with mineral spirits, oil it up good, use your finger, make sure she moves back and forth good. It's ready to go. It's just that simple. And a new desiccant kit, the parts list has a desiccant kit on it. It's a complete kit, it has all the O-rings to take the VIR completely apart. In fact, that kit even contains a new sight glass, O-ring. To take the sight glass out, you basically take the 7/16 bolt, put two nuts, lock them together, and there's your tool to take the sight glass out and back in. Simple. And these things work fantastic when they work. But always got to put your desiccant in.
For you guys that might have a car that needs a VR because corrosion took care of the center aluminum housing and it wasn't usable, there are brand new VIRs being reproduced. So there's some out there. As far as the internal component quality, that's yet to be determined, but I know that they're out there. I've seen them pretty readily available in the aftermarket.
And I've got a pile of them hidden under my bench too.
Yeah, and there's still lots of GM cars that are out with this setup, and you also, not that you're going to do it, but you get into the 80s, Porsche and Audi used it. So there's still a number of them available through that network of channel parts. Last one on the list is the orifice tube system, which is what everybody updates to. And as far as servicing an orifice tube system, we're still servicing orifice tube systems on newer models. So this isn't going to be a difficult system at all to service. They cool well, flooded evaporator design. The most important thing is to keep them clean and make sure it goes back together right. And if it's an R12 system, go back to R12 components. Make sure it's tuned for 12. Compressor-wise, well, we've got the big boat anchors. I'm sure that you probably got an RV2 case or two on your boat to keep it steady in the lake. Great things.
Got a few of the 3-holders hidden underneath my bench too. Because the 3-holders fits the mid-60s cars that are all the rage right now. You've got two versions of that compressor. You've got the 2 mounting holes, and there's the ones with the 3rd mounting hole on top. You got a couple of those cases sitting around, hang on to them. They're like gold.
RV2s?
RV2 with a 3-hole mounting.
And something I noticed about the RV2s is Chrysler actually wants, if you put an oil in that compressor, they actually stated to use a 300 viscosity mineral oil, which is a super lightweight thin oil.
Yeah.
Which, if you happen to retrofit one of those RV2s, you're going to be using a PAG 46. PAG 46 is about the same as a 288 viscosity mineral oil. So it's light, it's thin, it's going to get in between tight tolerances and give you lubrication to protect the internals of the pump. It's got a oil pan, the A6, the York, and the RV2 all use about 8 ounces of oil in the body. It's going to stay in the pump. Get into the later models? Well, if you're updating one and you go to a newer compressor design, how many of you guys have serviced the Sandons? How many customers go for the chrome plating? Essentially a bulletproof little compressor. And of course, the S6, which is the replacement aluminum version for the A6, is available. That compressor also runs on 46 if it's updated. If it's an older A6, GM says PAG 150. But if any of you guys go back into your literature, the A6 calls for a 365 viscosity mineral oil
525.
in the older ones, but it depends on the temp, on the temp outside. 365 light, 525 for where I live.
All my literature for where I live, 525. Seriously?
Oh, well, the S6 will use a lightweight.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're using older systems, stick with mineral oil. How about cooling systems? What kind of problems do you guys have with the older models with cooling systems? Did cars at 68 sit in traffic jams like we have on 95 and 405 out in California? So what's the possibility of one of these cars being exposed to high temperatures in one of those environments?
Huge.
What's the chances of it surviving? You're going to see them on the side of the road with the old Coleman cooler dumping water in the radiator to cool it down. So if you're working on the older classics, again, if they update the system, and it's hard for you guys to see, you can see the top rows of the condenser tube and fin. Tube and fins aren't nearly as efficient as the later parallel flows. If it's R12, it's not going to be a big issue. But if your customer decides to make it a driver, and it's not a showpiece, you're going to need to improvise some form of seals. RC, you mentioned earlier, what do you guys do when you got to seal the condenser to the core support?
You can basically go, your air conditioning foams, the ones you shove between the window, you got a window air conditioner, you can use those. Also, if there's room, 10-inch fan out in front.
Most important thing, keep the cooling system efficient. Make sure that it's not going to have problems overheating as far as engine cooling, and prevent condenser from starving for air by either accessory fans or seals. Make them breathe. If it's got a fan clutch, how many of you guys have hot rodders that say they want a 160-degree thermostat in their cooling system? When does the thermostatic fan clutch engage? What temperature? Hotter than that.
Well, it depends on if you get a trailer towing one, if they're more aggressive. I mean, if they're for a trailer towing package, the fan clutch, we cheated and went to different models, you know, like for
And you're right.
station wagons and stuff like that, where they had trailer towing package on their engagement. They're a little more aggressive.
And his comment's good if it's, especially when you look at something like a Suburban, but the biggest issue with, and we got the temp gun on it to verify we've got a 180-degree temp, because that's where a fan clutch is going to start to engage. If the customer chooses to cool the engine off below that 180 point, there's a real good possibility the fan clutch is never going to engage. What's going to happen to the head pressure? Yeah. And R12 systems, they really don't like head pressure, and it wasn't an issue unless it wasn't moving air through the condenser or the car was sitting in heavy traffic. And they do drive. RC, you mentioned earlier that guys spend the big bucks. How mad do they get when something melts down after they've spent the big bucks?
Oh, yeah. The word, you hear the word free a lot. You don't want to make the mistake.
It's a dirty word, especially in this industry. Condenser-wise, R12 systems, 8mm tube and fin. You could clean it with a bottle brush. That thing was huge. We move into the late 70s. This is the first parallel flow condenser that ever came out on motor vehicles. It was introduced in 1978. You've probably never seen one because it came on the Aries K car. The rest of the car rotted out well before the condenser failed. We'll move into the 90s. RC, you see a ton of these in your shop.
Well,
6mm tube and fins.
Piccolo.
Yep, Piccolos are still efficient. They work fine with either refrigerant. As far as the Piccolo design, for RC's area, Wisconsin, where they have excellent cheese and lots of beer, they have road salt. Okay, where I live, the only place you find salt is on the margarita glass. So we have condenser fins below the center of the condenser to the bottom. You will find older condensers where you see the tubes are still there, but the fins literally go away, they rot out. And they don't dissipate heat well if that happens. So If it's an older design condenser, there's still replacements available, updates available for them. The last one, the newer models, which is very efficient for the use of 134A refrigerant, and also with the YF refrigerants in the new models, is the parallel flows. Super tiny passages, no way to clean them up. They are replacement parts, but they're efficient. Their design's very efficient.
As a matter of fact, that 6mm tube and fin was a requirement to retrofit Cadillacs. And let's see, was it 88, 89, 90, where they had the issue if you didn't change the condenser, you're hitting the 55-degree temperature outside. Service air lights on. Service air lights on.
Yeah.
You had to put the 6mm condenser in to take care of that problem.
And as far as Chrysler's more bigger into the serpentines than they were the 6 mils.
Yeah, Chrysler, yeah, as a matter of fact, wow, I saw tons of those things. Big spots of oil on them all over the place. Those out of the key cars, they were jelly.
As far as the big blocks, well, we've got to get airflow through the front. This particular model car doesn't have air conditioning. If it's a vintage air system, you're going to have to create a set of seals. One thing we don't see in that picture that customers might not think about, and in the older days they take them off and throw them away and didn't think about them, fan shrouds. The air conditioning system is not going to perform without airflow to the front. If it's a direct drive fan, don't encourage your guys or the customer to go anywhere near a flexible fan. Flex fans don't work well for that application with any kind of air conditioning or anything in front of that radiator. They make a bunch of noise, they look pretty, but they're not efficient. If the customer's going to make it a driver, I recommend they stick to a thermostatic fan clutch. So it's going to move air through that radiator based on the engine temperature, and airflow coming through that condenser that's going to increase in temps, also going to trigger it. Notice, we've got the big old Buick fan clutch, the A6 that RC can teach you guys how to put a gut pack in no time at all. The special 5.5-inch diameter clutch for high RPM applications. This stuff is still out there and available. And it will work with 134A. The A6 has no problem moving that refrigerant. POA valve, those are still out. Like I mentioned earlier, they're very expensive, very hard to find. How about this component? Anyone ever seen one that's orange and spins on? We need
Yeah,
it.
back my flush machine.
Yeah, on the back of your flush machine.
Seriously?
As far as available dryers, there's, can I say rain shoe?
Yes, there's Porter Max.
For you guys that might run into the classics and you're looking for a filter dryer for an older model, could be a Ford. You know, how many of you guys think about integrated dryers on condensers today? And if you go back into the 70s and 60s, Ford had the dryer on the condenser. It wasn't integrated into the condenser, but it was right there on it. And those dryers are still out and available. If you're restoring one of them, XH7 desiccant, XH5 is what came out with R12. The desiccant, the newer desiccants are compatible with both refrigerants. So you can put them back with 12, or they can be retrofit to 134A, and the system's going to be protected and kept clean. What's the difference between mineral oil and PAG oil?
One's mineral based, the other's synthetic.
What do synthetic oils naturally do?
Hygroscopic.
Yes, they're very hygroscopic. How about detergents? Did mineral oil have detergents in it? Non-detergent oil? Didn't pick up debris? Of course, getting an A6 to shear metal was very slim chance because it was cast iron and heavy metal. But in mineral oil systems, the debris would settle somewhere low. The oils didn't pick it up and carry it. And it was safe for the refrigerant system to operate with a small amount of debris that was normal wear. Your customer chooses to update to 134A. If an older classic system was in operation and the parts are reused and they're not thoroughly clean, the potential for all that debris to be picked up by that synthetic high detergent PAG oil is very possible. And it's going to end up clogging up components, filter dryers, expansion valves, and once deterioration starts in the system, it's going to compound.
And you get to catastrophic failure.
And RC, I know you mentioned flush machine. How many of you guys have closed loop flushing equipment in your shops? Anybody? Would you all do an open loop flushing?
No, closed loop.
You have a closed loop? RC, you need to tell them about your flush machine.
That's expensive as hell though. It's a, we've got the ECAT H1000, the big one. That's, you see that?
Yeah, I've got a ECAP.
You got a ECAT also?
Have you had power recurve your board?
The classic car thing for me is a sideline, actually. I'm more into heavy equipment. So most of the heavy equipment stuff's got tube and fin condensers, so it's
Right.
a must. I'm doing less and less actual modern cars anymore, so I don't use the
You hit a
ECAP.
button somewhere.
Maybe it's dead on the board.
I'll just go talk to your laptop.
Your laptop was.
Huh, laptop's still showing the picture.
Oh, is it?
We need somebody who's more tech stuff.
There you go.
It's lame.
It's my rubber band.
Just right.
That's what it is, RC. We need a higher quality rubber band.
Oh, get the picture back. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Houston, we have a problem. I didn't do it, I promise.
It's all right, you know, keep moving, it starts to fix and you move it again.
I don't know if it's their cord, their VGA cord, or my adapter. Technology's wonderful. Sometimes.
Dennis, you got your screen up now, showing up behind you, you may just need to pull the PowerPoint back up.
What's that?
That's your screen, isn't it? Showing right now on the
Projector.
projector?
No, let's look at the actual, is that your screen?
No, my screen's got the presentation still on it.
It's actually showing up on the laptop.
My laptop's still got the presentation showing up, it's just not going through the VGA adapter from the HDMI connector. The connection here is real loose, Brett. You can still... Escape will take you out of it. F5 will work, puts it in. It's in the screen. It's not that, it's this connection. This adapter. It's right here, Brett.
Oh, there we go.
Got it at 5.
Go out of it and go back.
Go down to the bottom there, click on it, and it'll go full screen.
it was working.
Confusing about which.
Should have done that, or working fine.
I know, it's been doing it on computers all day for the last 3 days. I don't know why it's doing it.
I should be able to have fun, I should go back in. Yeah, that's where it was.
Where were you?
Back.
Back.
One more, right there.
There. Thank you.
Miracles, yes.
God,
Thank
We
you.
have liftoff.
it's the 10th time I fixed it.
I'm glad somebody had that happen to him before besides me.
Get some JB
Well, I'm really glad that happened.
JB Well,
Yeah.
as far as the debris problem we were talking about before we had a minor technical difficulty. Expansion valve, same thing, heavy debris. The older systems will accumulate trash, it's gonna settle at the lowest points, especially the bottom of evaporator tanks. Talking about the heat-cat flush machine, RC's got one of them. If you're using open loop flushing, try to capture the flush solvent. Look at it closely to see what debris is in it, and if you make multiple passes through an older condenser or an evaporator that has heavy debris in it, replace it. You might not ever get it clean. Expansion blocks, RC. As far as Chrysler expansion valves, anybody know the difference between the two valves? One's black, one's silver. Yeah, that's obvious.
Your connector, inlet is a little different. You got the adjusting connector. So your inlet is down below, unless you took the picture differently.
The valve on the right was used with the 6C17 variable Chrysler compressor on the later models. The valve on the left is a standard silver valve that RC mentioned early on. You're going to see a more flooded evaporator with the older Chryslers. The valve on the right is not going to fly for the older systems. You need to be sure it's a silver valve. You might
As a
find
matter of fact, you really don't want to, you don't want to try retrofitting the 6C17 system. It don't work real well.
No, it doesn't. And the 6E17 is on later models anyway, and probably not on the Chrysler you're going to be restoring. Might be on something you're scrapping, but not restoring. Orifice tube systems and debris. Everybody's familiar with this. We could all tell horror stories about the debris we pulled out of a GM or a Ford system. Use it as a dipstick. When you pull an orifice tube out of the system, and it could be an early 90s Chrysler truck. When you pull the orifice tube out, look at the oil that's on the tube. The oil should be a thin film on the tube, but it shouldn't drip. As far as debris, you're going to see a couple of small flakes of metal that we consider as normal wear. Heavy debris, educate the customer. It's going to require some cleaning, flushing, or component replacement to get rid of it and get it cleaned out. And as far as orifice tube systems are concerned, be sure that you're putting back the orifice tube for the refrigerant that's being used. You're going to find R12 systems need R12 controls, R12 orifice tubes. If it's a 134A system or it's an updated system, you're going to find a smaller orifice tube being used by the OEs, a slightly lighter refrigerant. It will affect refrigerant charge. They're color coded. Blue cars get in the tube, red cars get not. Just kidding.
Yeah.
How about the variable tubes? RC, ever use them?
No.
Do you recommend them?
If you're want to play, yeah. If you want to play a little bit. I've never used, we've never, where we're at, Wisconsin, you don't need it. If we hit 90 once or twice or 3 times, we're amazed.
Jim?
I've only used them in you need them, I agree with RC up north, we can care less about it. But the best place to use to get the biggest bang for the buck is on your rear systems. You got a rear system, you can pick up over 3 to 5 degrees, but it's an expensive toy.
It's expensive, and I like your comment. Rear systems, Econoline vans, Chevrolet Suburbans, Phoenix, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, high heat environments where you might see the head pressure go up over 300 PSI for a short period of time. that's where they're gonna be beneficial. As far as your environment in Wisconsin, up north, it's not necessary. And I agree with Jim, it's a very expensive toy. And inherently, when you put moving parts inside of an orifice tube, it makes it easier to clog up as well.
They work better in low humidity,
We're better in low humidity.
high heat, low humidity, when you put them in Florida.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it means don't take them to Louisiana or Florida. Evaporator core wise, copper tube and fin. Not efficient for our later refrigerants. Still gonna work just fine with R12, and that's what we recommend you keep the older classics. Keep the original gas on that tank.
And they're fixable.
You can weld copper.
Silver side.
Aluminum cores, well, they're still available. The stack plate design that we see up here, General Motors came out with this design in 1961. So it goes way, way, way back. And most vehicle manufacturers have gone to a design that's a stack plate design, just like we see here. So the technology is still the same as it's been for many years. And they are efficient. They will work well. Still available. STV and POA valves. The STV on the top is the Ford combo valve that was used in the late 70s, early 80s. The STV on the bottom can be off of a Ford product. It was used 70s through the early 80s for the full-size cars. You won't find it on the smaller bodies. So if you're buying your child their first vehicle, look for the Pinto that smokes. Chrysler EPR valve. Yep, that's the latest design that they had, I believe 1974 to 78. Prior to 74, it was a bullet design that was a harder housing, heavier valve. And in the earliest design, you would mistake for a valve lifter if you picked it up in the shop and looked at it when they were original, because they were flat on both ends and looked like a valve lifter. They're still there.
How many of you guys have your older Mitchell books yet? Don't get rid of them.
Oh, no, they're gold.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of the information, especially if you go to fooling with this stuff and you haven't really been fiddling with them over the years. They've got the test procedures for checking out the EPR valve, which requires 3 manifold gauges instead of 2, because that's what they want important on the top of the RV2 is for. Making sure, because there's a pressure differential between the suction line and the suction pressure inside the compressor. And I think the limit is 6 PSI difference. Anything more than that, EPR valve will scrap all that.
If you look in the Chrysler books, the service port on the RB2 cylinder head, that service port gauge reading should fluctuate between 0 and 19 PSI. You won't see it go all the way up to the 22 to 31 that you'll see at the EPR valve suction service port that was on the back side of the compressor between the air cleaner housing and the compressor body. And as far as the EPR valves, having worked for an old Chrysler dealership, the spring that goes behind the EPR valve, make sure that spring is in good condition or replace it. Anybody ever seen one of these valves when the spring went bad? Usually it would beat the valve into pieces and the compressor would digest it. Or you'd find it in the valve plates that RC said are no longer available. So you've got to make sure that all the components that retain that EPR valve are in good condition. You don't want it moving in the suction cavity when it oscillates back and forth to control that suction pressure. The RB2 compressor up top, you won't find many single groove belt clutches. Most of them are double grooves. RC mentioned the service port. That's over on the cylinder head. This is for checking the EPR valve. As far as serviceability of the RB2 or the replacement components, as he mentioned, valve plates aren't around. Gaskets, seals are still available. Gasket kits.
If you've got a good pumper, easy to take it apart. You can have it ripped apart in less than an hour. You don't need any special tools.
The oil pan on the bottom of them sometimes will get deteriorated. If you've got an oil pan that's got a leak at the seal where the pan meets the body of the compressor, pull the oil pan off of it and get a piece of glass and some real fine grit paper and work the pan back and forth lightly across the paper, and it'll clean up the seal surface enough for you to put a gasket back on it and have it clean up and seal. That also works on the top cap of a VIR unit, which is notorious for warping and causing leaks around the top of the cap when you pull a VIR apart to service it.
Now, take your highlighter, highlight the discharge hose. Up there, up. How many of you guys fix hoses at all in your shop? Your bead locker simulates that crimp very well. And what you can do, what we've been doing with the Chrysler hoses, is if you're good, you slice the crimp. Okay, slice the crimp, get your hose out of there. Most times that shell is silver soldered to the pipe. If you're good with a torch, you can actually take that shell off. You can silver a new shell in place, bead lock it. Looks very, very close to the original. But you gotta be good with silver solder. You're gonna need 40% silver to tin up the steel pipe and the shell, and 15% silver to put the crimp shell on. Once you're done, you paint it up. Hard to tell the difference unless you're a guy that knows where to look for the part number.
Just clarification, I missed this, when you're replacing the hose, what type of hose did you recommend?
Barrier.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, you can use barrier because basically their ends, it looks like a standard bead lock now, and they've been using that.
The reason you want the barrier is our 12 is a lot more expensive than it was back then, and the old hose permeated like a sponge and just went out.
Unless you've got an anal retentive customer that insists on original. I've got those. Trust me, I've got non-barrier hose on the shelf for just that reason. Huh?
I'll sell you my M12.
I've got it. But there are customers that will look, GM guys are good for this. They will look, you've got an old Pontiac with the hose clamps, they will look for the numbers on the hose.
Now,
They don't look for the smooth or the ribbed hose. They can have it either way.
and you mentioned something that really we need to clarify about barrier hose. And he mentioned cutting the sleeve off of that hose and silver soldering a fresh sleeve on the fitting. You're gonna find some GM hose assemblies, and I've seen techs cut the sleeves off of them to reuse them. If it's a barb style fitting, you don't wanna use it with barrier hose. It needs to be a beadlock style fitting to work with barrier hose, or you run the risk of the butyl nitrate barrier in that hose being cut by the barbs. And what you'll see permeation of oil that will come out the end of the hose where the crimp shell is, and start to leak out the holes that are into the crimp shell. So make sure if you're gonna reuse the fitting that it's a beadlock style.
Depends. It
That's an
depends.
undergarment.
Well, no, it depends which one you've got. If you've got one of those where they smash the hell out, because some of them you're gonna get where they smash the hell out of them.
It reduces the fitting.
Yes, it does. You can beadlock those. Been there, done it.
If you have to, you can always do a weld on to the existing fitting that's there, clean the fitting up, do a weld on, silver solder in place, make sure it's real clean, and that would give you the beadlock style fitting to crimp hose to that would stay together.
But, like there again, it depends on the anal retentiveness of the customer. Because there are, you did it again. Yep, that's what happened. You stepped on your wire. Steve,
That's bad.
Where's Steve? Yep, that's what happened. You stepped on the wire, man.
Come on back. Yeah, y'all can blame it on me, I did it.
Quit that.
I know, I'm such a bad example.
You know, you're talking about the anal retentiveness of your customer, but there's another part of that. I recently had a 64 vet that was going through this Duntops, and it had to have the original hoses and original. I mean, you talk about a nightmare putting the system together with screw type hose clamps.
Oh, I know.
You wanted hose clamps on the fittings?
Yeah.
Just for the originality of
Yeah,
it?
and they had to have the right number on the hose clamp.
Yes. In fact, they had to have the right spacer bar, pointing the right way.
Yeah.
I've got buckets of those that I've saved over the years too, just for that purpose, because like a lot of your Pontiacs.
Hit F5, make sure you go back to where you were. Yep. And I promise
A
I'm
lot
not.
of your Pontiacs had hose clamps on them. Early, almost in the mid-70s. A lot of them had hose clamps, and a lot of them used a number 10 discharge hose instead of an 8. It's like, so if you guys are into the collector stuff, and really, I mean, you got customers, a lot of customers that have that stuff, you'll find a non-barrier hose and all that crap, snap it up. It's disappearing fast.
Yeah, I don't know of any manufacturers that are building a non-barrier hose anymore. You know, and if they choose to retrofit the system to 134A, gotta use barrier hose. Jim mentioned it earlier about the nylon tube-braided hose being permeated by refrigerants very readily. If R12 is going through it, you know 134A is going to go through it way faster. And customers could potentially end up in your shop every 4 to 5 months for a top off. That isn't the problem in Wisconsin because your summer's already over. Where I live, it's all year round.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wisconsin, you charge only has to last about 3 months.
Not even that.
Not even that.
But I prefer to make them last several years. You know, happy customers tell their pals, go to this guy, he can fix it. It takes time. He's expensive, but when you get it back, it's going to work.
After 4th of July and stuff.
And as far as hose
I get
assemblies,
guys running all the way through.
what's that?
I get guys running. Let's see what I've got. And I've got a Camaro coming in. As soon as the salt's gone, I've got about a month on. Mid-80s Camaro, wants it reworked.
So you're going to drink the margarita? Oh, the road salts, I forgot, you live in Wisconsin.
All right.
Hose assembly wise, a lot of the reproductions that are out there, the most important thing is try to get a quality reproduction. Watch out for the some of the nefarious hose assemblies that are built that are replacements. You've got reduced barrier now on later models. You won't find reduced barrier hose on older cars. It's going to be the heavier tube-braid nylon. If it's a replacement hose, you can go to the standard barrier, and it's going to look very, very close. And it's not going to leak.
One important point. You cannot use hose clamps with barrier hose. It will not hold.
Yes, sir.
Back to your previous picture of that Chrysler with that muffler on it right there, you gotta be careful. If you had a reed valve break, they'll get inside of there and pop up over the high side. You'll blow a compressor back to back.
And I've also seen those reed valves shaken through.
Easiest way with those.
Gotta
Right.
flush them and then shake them, yes.
But I've also seen them make it through the muffler, the reed valve you're mentioning, and I found them in the condenser inlet, and they'll lean up against the condenser inlet, they'll fall down or move up, and you'll have a customer telling you that thing will blow a hose, they'll put it back together, it'll cool fine for a few months, blow a hose again, and you won't find pressure relief valves on the Chrysler older systems. On the Fords, you're going to find the blowout plug in the dryer. Now, in Ford's procedure in the old days was change the plug, evacuate it, and charge it. Change the dryer. Because if that dryer opens to the outside of vents refrigerant, you know there's going to be contamination or moisture in the desking bag, probably in a pretty large amount. Accumulator-wise, okay, RC mentioned it earlier on your parts list, VIR eliminator kit, POA valve eliminator kits. How many of you guys have installed one of them? I don't like it, but I've installed it. It's what the customer wanted. I encourage you to put it back original. You know, in a classic car world, as you mentioned, the 64 Vet, the customer raises the hood of a classic car. If it's got retrofit fittings on it, the value of the vehicle went out the window. Not acceptable to put them back that way. They need to be put back R12. The fittings need to be correct. If they're going to daily drive it, it's a beater, which you mentioned a Pontiac with hose clamps, that's probably a beater.
Not my one customer's Pontiac wants, it's a sweet car.
You'll notice the hose clamp's still available. You can still get those with the numbers on them.
But it ain't gonna work. It's gonna leak like hell.
Your point is, you get it back on street.
Yeah, we can recharge it. We got our business.
Job security.
Job security. As far as availability of update kits, I call them update kits. I don't like them. I don't encourage them. But you're going to have customers that want to drive them and that want to update the refrigerant to 134A. You can discourage it, but it's not always going to make them change their mind. They're still going to stay with their decision to go to 134A because of cost. Any of you guys Have an idea what the current cost of a 30-pound cylinder R12 is?
$300.
You're a little low.
A little low, I'd say, I've seen them around 5 on the internet. Say, when did R12 go away?
1997. Going back, how do you ship your R12? Because FedEx won't take it, UPS won't take it. How do you guys do it? I can't sell it, so how do you ship it?
You know, I've never asked the carrier that offered it how they ship it. I mean, I used
package it and send it.
DOT won't let you.
DOT won't, I know what you're saying, but it's not legal. I'm trying to figure out how,
That's how it
you go on eBay, they said, well, we'll sell you the cans. I'm going, how do you,
You know, I read a regulation about that, Jim, about the DOT stating that the plug on the tank had to meet a certain DOT standard so it can handle the temperature that could be seen inside of one of the trailers when they're shipping that refrigerant. And I believe that truck carriers can carry them. The 30-pounders can be trucked. And he's right. I don't think you'll see UPS or FedEx delivering a 30-pounder of R12. It was December 31st of 1995 is when the production of R12 ceased in the United States. How many years ago was that?
Enough.
Yeah, we still got R12. It still hadn't gone away. So it's out there. And if the customer's got a classic, it needs to go back R12. So don't shortcut. I mean, you can always talk to a customer. Yes, it's expensive. And as RC said, if they're really putting it back like your customer at that vet, they're going to pay the money to get the refrigerant that goes in the car, correct?
You guys ever travel to swap meets, car shows, et cetera, et cetera? Walk the swap meet. We've picked up some of our supply of R12 at a swap meet. We just go up, look at the box, make sure the box is intact. If the seal on the stem is intact, well, yeah, you pick the box up, Jim. Jeez.
well, I don't want to.
Right, this is where I got my last 30-pounder.
You know, there's a lot of folks that bought it way back when. Families that have it, they have absolutely no idea what they're sitting on.
We should have.
The other thing in the swap meet with the 30-pounders, I bring my identifier out.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't trust them.
Well, where are you going to find 110 in the middle of Iowa? You're not. But if the seal, you can tell what the old seals look like. And if you know, I'm talking about the shrink wrap around the fit valve. If it's there, it's intact. The cylinder should be good.
Yeah, and they don't make aluminum cylinders. Be sure and pick it up. Make sure there's something in it. Didn't all leak out the top stem behind the seals. POA valve eliminator kit? Yeah, ooh, that's what I said. And there's a problem with this. How many of you guys have ever seen a cycling switch installed on an expansion valve system that made the compressor rapid cycle or short cycle? Be careful about a cycling pressure switch used on an older system. Sometimes you will see erratic cycling because of the expansion valve opening and closing. The expansion valve is going to oscillate. In an environment where RC lives, Jim, I don't know whether you're up north or down south like I am, but both. In Texas and Louisiana where I live, the ambient temperature stays high enough that an expansion valve is not going to oscillate to the closed position near as often as it does in an environment where RC lives, where they keep the beer cold outside. The expansion valve is going to stay open longer, and that switch won't generally cause a rapid cycling problem in a higher heat environment.
You can tinker with that, because if you pull the connector off, there's a little screw in there, you can tinker.
And you can, and that changes cycling points. It'll lower or raise the cycling points.
Also, I forgot to mention one thing. When you're doing the retrofits on these, obviously, you gotta comply with Uncle Sam and the high pressure cutoff switch gotta go on. Chryslers are easy because they've got that 1/4-inch port on top of the receiver dryer. You get a high-low cut switch, you're ready to go. GMA6, that requires a trip to the junkyard because you cannot use the superheat port. You have to find one, older one.
The high pressure.
It would be 78, 79, and 80 A6 has the same, looks like a superheat port, but it's drilled to one side into the high pressure side. You can slap that head on the current A6. The part, should be a switch part number and a pigtail kit, and you can make it look sanitary. This is what I'm talking about, you make it look sanitary.
We did the retrofit from 12 to 134A, we release date, you can cut the line, put a compression fitting in, it looks like a charge port, and you just screw on the switch.
You didn't cut the light, it was like this was a saddle panel.
Do not use those.
So use the
Oh, I know, but that's what they had.
And
We,
Jim, you made a good comment because ATCO fittings, ATCO makes that discharge line fitting for you to put that switchboard on the GMs. And RC, what RC's talking about doing is changing the rear head and put the high pressure cutoff switch with the red insulator in the back of the compressor.
to make it look sanitary.
But the other ones like using the AirSep splice and just.
Yeah, there's that makes them too.
AirSet makes a good splice kit, and it does work, it's acceptable.
Don't use
Again,
saddle fan.
no saddle taps. Again, the big issue here is what your customer going to permit you to do on the car you're restoring. If it's going to be a numbers matching showpiece, they're not going to go for that. If it's going to be a daily driver, chances are you can get away with it, provided you make it look clean. And AirSep's fittings, as you mentioned, are very clean installs. They do a nice job. As far as the systems that are out, well, you can look at this one. It's a pretty clean restoration. The one thing I want to mention on the Yorks, how many of you guys have seen an inertia ring clutch? If you get hold of one and the inertia ring is intact and the dampener is still intact, keep it. Put a bearing in it, clean it up. If you have to get a fresh coil to put in, you can. They're reusable. They're very hard to find. You'll find them used on the AMCs and the Fords with the York and Tecumseh applications to smooth out the compressor vibrations. And if it happened to be that 63 Thunderbird you mentioned, chances are that 63 Thunderbird had an inertia ring clutch if it was a 390 car.
It does. In fact, it's got that exact style of clutch, including the brushes.
Yeah, that's the old style Pitts clutch that had the brushes in the back side of the coil was actually built into the pulley. And you'll find a set of brushes that rubbed it. Pitts made that clutch setup. Back seat valves. They're available. They're still out there in numbers. Be sure that the back seat valve is not leaking at the post. Remember that the back seat valves do not have Schraders inside those ports. Yes, and there's been a bunch of R12 that's been emitted into the ozone because of the back seat valves. Someone forgot that when you back seat the valve, that port's open.
Yeah, accidents happen. People get in a hurry, they forget, it's like, oh, crap.
Mm-hmm. And you end up with a big mess of the ozone there. Keep them clean, put it back right. As far as the cars that are out with these in the numbers, I don't know what the restoration market's like. I know RC does a bunch of them. You see a bunch of them on television. In the South, there's still a lot of these cars that are being driven on a regular basis. And if your customer's got a daily driver, well, you can give them options to restore it and put it back either with fresh refrigerant or with R12. If it's going to be a showpiece, put it back R12. Keep it original. Don't go to the later refrigerants. Questions?
Yeah, we got,
Watch the
I
cable.
got lots of customers after in the weeds.
Yes, sir.
So, on the 64, it's coming back, he's in Tennessee, but he's bringing it back down next week. And I've convinced him, we've gone through the dump off, so he's got his dump off. So now he wants a daily driver, but he's still got the A6. We sent this A6, it was original to that year vehicle. We sent it out to California to a guy out there that does nothing but repair, rebuild A6. He builds aircraft engines during the day, A6s at night. He went through the whole thing and rebuilt it, but we still have the front seal leaking. And it's
Which
just,
type of seal did he put in?
Yeah.
Did he put the steel or the ceramic? Huh?
we put both of them in, and they're still leaking. So, I mean, he's to the point right now.
Did he put a new gut pack in, or did he just
No, he
rebuild?
rebuilt the gut pack with the original, Corvettes. Yeah, the ceramic seal he had, we've tried the
Check.
steel seal.
And I've run into this problem, and what I found, check the crankshaft where it goes through the seal plate. If there's anything, if there's even a scratch that looks like steel wool was on it, it'll cause that ceramic plate to leak. If you take it back apart and there's any markings in that shaft, you get a real fine emery paper and work the shaft and get it real clean.
Yeah.
And when you put it back together, make sure the seal protector goes all the way down over it, so it doesn't, there's not a scratch in the shaft.
We've been through this for probably about 2 years now and had multiple seals in the front. We've checked the input shaft is, you know, everything is great, and we're to the.
Do you
point
have a
now-
set, I don't suppose you've got a set of them, they used to have a set of headspace gauges for the A6. You remember those, Jim, don't you? They had those two funny wires, one was a go, one was a no-go, for putting the shaft seal in. Now, I've got a pair of them somewhere, but I'm guessing you're probably gonna be gut packing that one.
Yeah, but it's already, he already spent, you know, like $500 to send it out to California and have this guy go completely through it. And, then I put, subsequently, I put the metal seal in, I put the ceramic seal in, the input shaft looks great, and we're to the point now where it still leaks in.
Does the car sit a lot?
Pardon?
Does it sit a lot?
No, he wants it as a daily driver, he tries to drive it all the time.
How fast of a leak is it? Pretty noticeable?
It's probably half a pound in a year, and, you know, that's it. I think that was probably normal for that vehicle, for that.
And
Yeah,
you're right.
For that compressor.
Did you guys put the felt back in? The felt,
There's a fault.
the
Yes,
customer,
yes.
that's back in there?
Yeah.
No failure.
How wet is it?
Everything went back, I mean, we went through the Corvette manual from
Right.
Corvette.
Right.
And everything went back in exactly like it was supposed to be, because this was a done job. He didn't care what kind of money we spent on it, he wanted it perfect.
There must be just a microscopic nick in that shaft somewhere.
Either there's a nick in the shaft or the depth of the shaft, something that's not letting the seal ride in the correct place. I mean, half a pound, isn't that bad? How wet is it getting? Is it soaked in the felt?
Well, it throws oil up
On the
hood.
clutch.
Oh, that's a good leak.
That's a
good leak.
significant
That's a
leak.
big leak.
Yeah.
But if it throws that oil up on the hood, that looks normal.
That's what I was told by everybody that I've talked to, and we've spent hours.
Yeah, that's a little too much of a leak.
It's too much of a leak, it's called a
Get a different compressor.
Yeah.
What?
Well, they're trying to keep numbers matching on the car.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it's.
you can't always have your cake and eat it too.
You can cheat doing that.
It's a show car, you don't want that all
Hold it, get a brand new shell, if they keep the old shell, put a new internal gut package.
Yeah.
Be aware.
That's what I was saying.
That's what happened.
Use your shell.
No, it eliminate any potential problems with the depth of the shaft. They got the-
It's cheaper that way, you'll just keep, you know, the label on the outside, put
Oh,
a
yeah.
gut package in, we'll sell it, it's cheaper than what you
Check
just.
the outside of the seal too, make sure that oil's not coming around the outer part of the shield, not between the seal and the shaft, but between the seal and the housing.
Between the seal
Yeah,
and the
check
housing.
that
Yes.
where it goes in. I've seen those leak that way too.
Yeah,
One other thing you could check too is, look back in your book and make sure you torque the rear head right. Because the rear head is actually, there's a torque spec for the rear head of that A6.
Right,
And if you don't have the torque right, the shaft wanders.
okay.
Just the part about what looks good, what's on the inside, two different things. The R4 compressors were notorious for falling apart because of foreign material that's in the system. The way we solved it before we got rid of them was to put a suction screen in the back of them. It's the cheapest insurance you guys could ever buy on those things, because when they fail, you used to get foreign material and you can't flush it out, and that's how we used to fail. So
that's, honestly, that's the same suction screen they used on the A6 all the way back in the early 60s.
No, different screens, different screens. But what happened was, in engineering training, our job is always to figure out how to cut waste and cost, so we went from the A6 compressor to the R4. Why do you need a screen? Because you got a clean system. The reason you need the screen is not because you're building it, it's because as soon as that thing fails, garbage flies all over the place. And engineers forgot that when you shut a compressor down for failure, the garbage goes in both directions, not just downstream. And the biggest problem I had with the R4 was you had a damn muffler assembly that you could flush till hell freezes over and would still have a couple particles. And within 2 months, particle comes out, bam, there goes your compressor.
And I would say that the R4s, even the brand new ones back when I worked for GM in the 70s, when you put a fresh one on, you always found a couple of flakes that were the result of normal wear or
That's
break.
why if you guys are doing rebuilds, put the screen in this, and nobody's gonna know the difference, but it'll save the compressor and everything else.
Keep the trash out of it. And for those of you guys that restore the old ones, and Jim mentioned the R4, the R4 actually was was available in the 70s. I've seen some of the 74 and 5 models that had R4s with VIR units. So the R4 wasn't strictly on the CCOT system. It came out before the
Corvettes.
CCOT was introduced.
Corvettes have them.
And by the way, for those of you guys, same thing, they changed the internal gut package of the R4 between the 70s and there. Some of the changes that are in the original ones, you didn't use 150 weight oil, you trashed that thing. They just changed that to the 90s when they started switching them. But if you hang on to the shell, everything's the same, just change the inside, nobody knows the difference. You
Still have numbers matching parts because the sticker's always on the shell and the internal gut pack's fresh.
That's the game, yes.
Yeah, and your customer can drive it, you eliminate leak potentials, it'll work.
You can't change the shell, that's.
Yeah, I got the tools on that too.
Provided it doesn't rust out.
Then you wire brush, you paint it.
No, wire brush, actually on the R4 shell, memory cloth works real well.
Just don't damage it.
Showed a picture on your VIR replacement kit. Another idea is to put a filter in the inlet of that block adapter, because that orifice would have that right there. Put the little cone filters reversed on the inlet, and you eliminate a lot of problems with those.
That's the expansion valve screen, the little cone expansion valve screen?
Yeah, just a little cone screen, and it'll help you from getting clogged.
Yeah, and his comment is on this block, that's actually drilled as an orifice.
Right.
But unlike the orifice tube, it doesn't have the expansion screen or the filter screen built on it. So what he's talking about is that the old cone style expansion valve screen would fit in the end of that block, turned backwards instead of being pushed in, pushed out. And it would prevent that expansion valve screen from being sucked into the block, and it would keep debris from getting into that system or getting through that system. Yeah, I hadn't used that idea, but Delco and there's a couple other manufacturers make inline filters, and I always encourage inline filters on the systems that had potential debris problems. And the R4s were, as Jim mentioned, normal wear. You're going to find aluminum flakes and small debris as a result of break-in and normal wear of the compressor. Can't prevent it. And you mentioned the gut packs. What the 150 is what everybody's running in the R4 and the A6 now. What were the older gut packs run? Were they need a lighter oil?
The older one needed a heavier oil, 150. What happened was back in about 2002, 2003, they wanted to do universal oil, but the older compressors weren't set up for the lighter oil, so I could take a brand new R4, put in the 46 oil, and within about 4 minutes I trashed R4 compressor.
I was going to say, the technical service bulletins that are in Mitchell and all that state the GM universal tag, which is 12378526 is the long part number on it. They state in that TSV that it's applicable to every GM compressor but the R4 and the A6.
That was why.
Yeah, they will store.
Failure to communicate.
12345923 is the bag 150 that they stated to use in the A6 and the R4.
In going with the heavier oil versus the lighter oil, if you make that mistake, it doesn't affect the longevity of your compressor. It just works a little harder. Going the other way, you can have problems.
And do you believe it's acceptable to run the bags with R12? The bag manufacturers in Mitsu claims that the bag will run with R12.
I'm not trying to figure out how to answer you about this one.
I really want your answer, especially coming from you, because I'll tell all of you straight up, mineral oil works great. R12 has a hardening process because of the chlorine molecule that protects the metal. I would leave mineral oil in it, but Idemitsu claims that their tags work with R12.
I'm not jumping on that
Play
one.
the fifth, Jim.
I plead the fifth on that one, but
Thanks, Tom. You're on big help.
the biggest issue when we were switching from 12 to 134, I remember the argument with my boss. I said, because he said you got to flush the system and everything else before we had it. And I says, I don't know, my company car, I just threw out the R12, put in the 134A. You know, the difference was the mineral oil at 134A doesn't quite circulate around as much. So I said, well then fine, let's have the PAG oil. And that's how we did the thing. The story, what happened was why they wanted to flush it, why they said you couldn't go back and forth, was when engineering was doing their testing, going from 12 to 134A, they flushed the system with R11 and was left behind. That's what caused this mess that everybody said was worried about. So, because I said, I don't understand, I'm running my company car, and paying trash, yeah, that's what's nice about having a company car.
They make good guinea pigs. But you never had a problem with it? You know, in the early days of retrofitting, I had guys that would tell me they would leave mineral oil in the system with nylon 2-braid hose because the mineral oil acted as a barrier and prevented those hoses from leaking.
It does.
There are all kinds of horror stories.
It does. It permeates the hose and acts as a barrier.
I forgot about those ugly hoses, yes.
Yeah, the problem was, the leaks always saw were the fitting or the crimp shell, and then it amplified it. If it was the hose itself, yeah, the mineral oil would act as a barrier to keep them from leaking in the hose or permeating as fast.
Yeah, one other point, you're doing this a lot, probably. The manufacturers between the 70s and 90s went ballistic on different sizes of O-rings and designs of O-rings. They had round O-rings, oval O-rings, captured O-rings, different material for O-rings, and even with the micrometer, I couldn't figure out which one to use, so let the buyer do that.
It's a,
Yeah, hell of a cabinet of O-rings.
when I talked to Murray, I always told the techs that the color coding or the color of the O-ring generally indicated that it was a specialized O-ring. Ford had the red ones that were oval shaped. GM had the blue ones that were captive. You had yellow ones that were used in switch ports that were unique. So, and then finally everybody went to H&B or red ones. Yeah. So in the older cars, if you encountered a color-coded O-ring, you generally meant that it was specialized. So, again, the micrometers will put it back.
They haven't really did a very good job of helping us to distinguish, you know, what material this O-ring's made out of versus another one. Like the one question you'll see, it may be an R134A system, but they tell you to lubricate the O-rings with mineral oil.
That's right.
Always.
Because the PAG oil will, it's synthetic, will attack the rubber of the O-ring and cause it to deteriorate.
No, it's corrosion of the fitting.
It's not the rubber. The issue with PAG lubricants in a fitting is PAG wells are hygroscopic. They're going to pull in moisture. Moisture mixes with 134A, makes hydrofluoric acid. And anybody in this room that's unscrewed a condenser outlet fitting on a Chevrolet truck from 91 to 98, where they had the condenser orifice tube in the condenser outlet, and they pulled the threads off the condenser fitting when they unscrewed the steel nut, that was caused by the corrosion from acid formation in the system. And PAG oils, first off, you don't want them on your hands. PAG oil is not good for your body. It's not an oil you get on your fingers and rub like mineral oil was. And the hygroscopic nature of PAG oils, it's 10 times brake fluid. So the absorption rate of that oil is so fast, no, you don't want it in a service fitting. Mineral oil or dielectric grease, Ford was big on dielectric grease, to lubricate threads or lubricate an O-ring is always better. One, it's easier on your skin, and it's going to eliminate the potential for moisture to get drawn into the fitting and cause corrosion.
Yeah, I have a resolution for you, okay? And the point he's trying to make is that some of the O-rings are not compatible with mineral oil.
Yeah.
And everybody's been telling him, spray mineral oil, use the spritzers on it or whatever, put it in there. Your resolution for that is a product called Krytox from DuPont. It's a fluoroscopic grease, and it will not bug those O-rings whatsoever. And then there's another company that makes the sticky stuff, I can't even remember their name, that they put on O-rings. It comes in 2 different formats. It's basically cooked down oil. I'm trying to think of it.
Is it like a grease or something?
Yeah, no, it's really tacky. It'll string out about that far. And that actually helps O-rings seal.
I've always used dielectric grease or mineral oil, and mineral oil or PAG oil is not a compatibility with rubber. You got neoprene O-rings, you got nitrile O-rings, you got hydrogenated nitrile butyl rubber. So the difference is the temperature stability of the material. And anybody who's pulled the manifold all back of A6 like the old vet, when you looked at the nitrile O-rings that GM used, they were flat. They didn't retain shape, they were hard and would get brittle. Nitrile is temperature stable to about 225 degrees. Neoprene rubber, which is what GM tends to use more frequently, is temperature stable to about 250 degrees. And neoprene is very good with 134A because it has a less growth rate than hydrogenated nitrile butyl rubber, which is the HNBR greens That O-ring is temperature stable to about 325 degrees Fahrenheit, so it retains its shape under a high temperature application. As far as the chemical compatibility, they're all compatible with ag oil or mineral oil. It's simply the temperature stability of the material in the application.
Use Crytox, you ain't gotta worry about it.
So I can
Or Nylon, either one of them.
Crytox,
Crytox.
and it's by.
It will not mess with those O-rings.
I've seen that same chemical in Mother's cookie packages.
It's food grade, and it does not interfere with anything. Plus, you get the fittings off it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
anybody who's, like I mentioned, that GM condenser app, you'd unscrew the fitting, and there's ways to get those apart, but the steel nut would pull the threads off the condenser outlet on a regular basis.
Use the intercept splice when you're finished, that's all.
Uh-huh.
So, does anybody know that, if they've come up with a repair on the Chevy trucks that have the accumulator right up against the firewall, and the same situation happens, that the threads strip right off, but there's about maybe 2 inches, 1.5 inches left.
Oh, they're loaded off a Chevy truck? I think my battery died. Yeah, who cares? Anyway, what we came up with a procedure in our shop, you're right, that accumulator, it's smack dab on the firewall.
Right.
Takes 2 guys. You got one guy with the garden hose just putting a light layer of water on the firewall. The other guy, you can actually take your torch, heat that fitting up on the outside of the accumulator, heat it up good, just move the hose over, hose her down good, comes loose.
We use a mini ductor for that.
The-
Mini ductor, inductive heating, wrap the coil around it, hit the button. and
Yeah,
it'll heat it
the
up.
reason RC mentioned that, the garden hose, and the reason that works, the nut on that evaporator outlet is steel, the
Right.
accumulator's aluminum, the expansion rates are different, it'll come apart like you.
But you want the
Your idea's
water on
good
the
too, because
firewall,
it saturates that accumulator.
Yeah, it's not, there's no open flame either, so it's using induction heating. And you just take the coil and wrap it around there, and you buy it, and the tool, it
Yeah, but
makes it a lot safer.
the only problem with that is, when you heat aluminum, you're annealing it. So you're
Right.
making that tube very soft. And chances are the steel nut's not gonna turn.
No, I've taken it
On
off, as I
the,
just said. That's the way I get them off.
Yeah, that's the way I take them
And
off.
sometimes I just
Heat
heat them
them
up,
and chill
cool
them.
them off, heat them up, cool them off, heat them up, cool them off, and then it's intentional.
It eventually
Break.
breaks the corrosion.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 shots at it.
You can also use a centering drill bit and go down to the end and put penetrating oil and heat it up with a heat gun,
Yeah.
and it'll come apart, you won't have to get it too hot, but
They
you're
used to
right,
have,
aluminum pipe's soft.
had the hole in there for that.
Yeah, a lot of different methods and ways, and there's ways to get them apart. Other questions? Perfect. Daytime? Please be generous to us on your comment cards. It didn't suck that bad. And
some technical difficulties, but.
yeah, and that's my fault for stepping on the court. And thank you very much for coming out and attending the class.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Jim, thanks for coming in. Appreciate your attendance.
SRC, guys working on classic cars, we have 2 different shop rates on classic cars. Why not?
I'm not that greedy.
Somebody's gotta pay for those cans you put in the snow.